We play and call it work.
Hey everybody, Matthew here from MiniWarGaming.com, and welcome to episode 2 of How to Play Age of Sigmar 2nd Edition. As always, make sure that you subscribe to our channel for future updates of these videos and many others, and click that little bell icon so you actually get notified. And if you want to teach others how to play Age of Sigmar, just tell them to go to MiniWarGaming.com/howtoplay AOS as in Age of Sigmar, so you don't have to, and I'll do it for you. Today we're talking about the hero phase. The hero phase can be one of the quickest phases. It can also take a little bit more time if you have a lot of wizards or a lot of special heroes. In this phase, wizards cast their spells, and mighty heroes sometimes use their abilities to bolster the troops around them. Let's take a look at a few examples of this. Let's talk about magic first. There are many wizards in Age of Sigmar, and wizards can cast spells, and they can also unbind spells, which is basically stopping your opponent from casting their spells. You can refer to the war scroll of the wizard to see what spells they know and how many they can cast and unbind. Typically, a regular wizard can cast one spell and can unbind one spell in the enemy hero phase. But some more powerful ones might be able to do more than that. They might get bonuses or have other tricks up their sleeves. This is an example of a Knight Incanter. You can see under Magic, this model is a wizard. It can attempt to cast one spell in your hero phase and attempt to unbind one spell in the enemy hero phase. It knows the Arcane Bolt, Mystic Shield, and Spirit Storm spells. Now, the Arcane Bolt and Mystic Shield spells are available in the core rules. And as far as I've seen, almost every single wizard knows them, with very few exceptions. But you can't assume that. You only know Arcane Bolt and Mystic Shield if it is written on your card. And then usually wizards will know some other spell or spells as well. For example, Spirit Storm. All spells have to be cast in the hero phase. It can be at any point in the hero phase, the beginning, the middle, the end, it doesn't matter. And you can do them in whatever order you so choose. Casting a spell is actually really simple. In order to do it, there is a casting value, which you can see right here on the card. And the casting value tells you how much you have to roll on 2 dice in order to be able to cast a spell. Now, assuming there's no modifiers, you can see for Spirit Storm, it has a casting value of 7. So I would take 2 dice, I would roll them, and if I roll 7 or higher, in this case the symbol's a 6, so this is an 8, then I have successfully cast the spell. If there is an enemy wizard within 30 inches of the wizard casting the spell, they can attempt to unbind the spell. To unbind a spell, they have to roll 2d6, and they have to roll higher than what you rolled. This is important. It's not higher than the casting value, it's higher than what you rolled. So since I rolled an 8, the enemy wizard that's 30 inches or less away would have to roll 9 or higher. 2 things to note here. 1, the wizard does not have to be in line of sight of my wizard in order to unbind it, so they don't have to be able to see each other. The second thing is that they have to be able to actually unbind. So if they already tried to unbind a spell, and whether they failed or succeeded, and they're only allowed to unbind once in the enemy hero phase, they can't attempt to do it again. So they have to make a choice. Do I want to try to unbind it? This, of course, means that in most cases, if you roll double 6 to cast a spell, that your opponent won't be able to unbind it, as they can't roll higher than a 12 unless they have modifiers. Now, the Arcane Bolt and the Mystic Shield spells are available in the core book, but they work essentially as follows. Arcane Bolt has a casting roll of 5, or casting value of 5. If you roll 5 or higher, you pick an enemy within 18 inches, and they take 1 mortal wound, which we'll talk about wounds and mortal wounds when we get to the shooting phase. If you roll 10 or higher, they take D3 mortal wounds instead. We didn't talk about D3s in the core rules. A D3 is half of a D6. I would roll a D6, I would divide it in half, and round up. So 5 divided by 2, rounding up, is a 3. So they would take 3 mortal wounds. Arcane Bolt is a very basic spell. If you have nothing else to cast, it's usually a good one. Mystic Shield is a casting value of 6, and you choose a friendly unit, and they get to re-roll saving throws of 1 when determining if they're going to avoid damage. One other thing that I should point out, each spell can only be attempted to be cast once per hero phase. And you cannot attempt to cast the same spell more than once per wizard. And even if they have a special rule that says that this spell could be cast by some other wizard as well. So if you had 3 wizards on the field and one cast Arcane Bolt, no other wizard could cast Arcane Bolt, even if the first wizard failed to cast it. That's important. It's not just if they successfully cast it, it's if they attempt to cast it. That stops all the other wizards from attempting it as well, unless once again they have a very specific rule that says that they can. But this is rare, although it does exist. So that is how wizards work, pretty straightforward in that case. The other type of unit that you'll come across that activates a lot of abilities in the hero phase are generally called priests. And you'll notice that they're down on the keyword right here. We have priest. The Lord Relictor from the Stormcast Eternals is a good example of one of these, and probably one that you'll become familiar with, as it's quite common. And a priest, instead of casting spells, can do something called prayers. And a lot of armies have their version of a priest, and they'll even usually have the priest keyword. And typically what armies will have is on the actual war scroll, you'll see that he has a couple of abilities, Healing Storm and Lightning Storm. And in this case it says, in your hero phase. Now that's something to point out. Beyond the scope of what we're talking about in this video, any ability on your war scroll that says, in your hero phase, do this, is something you also do in the hero phase. So you're not limited to just casting spells, prayers, and command abilities, which we'll talk about in a second. You can do anything that the card says you can do in the hero phase. In the case of prayers, usually you say you're going to do a prayer, and there's usually some sort of roll you have to do. For example, this one says, in your hero phase, pick a friendly Stormcast Eternal model within 12 inches of this model and roll a dice. On a 3+, you can heal up to D3 wounds that have been allocated to that model. And this Lord Relictor has a specification that says that he can't do Lightning Storm and Healing Storm in the same hero phase, or in the same turn. So this is important because he knows both of them. And in addition to this, in the Stormcast Eternals book, he gets to know another prayer, but he's allowed to do that other prayer if he wants to, just not both of these at the same time. So sometimes there's a choice. So Lightning Storm does damage to an enemy, and Healing Storm heals, just as it kind of sounds like it would. So the Lord Relictor and other priests are another thing that activates quite commonly in the hero phase. Another thing that can happen in the hero phase, but doesn't always, is something called command abilities. These are usually things that your heroes have, in particular the more expensive heroes. Some of the cheaper heroes don't have command abilities, but a lot of them do. Command abilities are usually the last thing on a war scroll. If there is nothing written about command abilities, all heroes are assumed to have 3 basic command abilities that are found in the core rulebook. And that is that they can do Inspiring Presence to automatically let some unit nearby pass a Battle Shock test without having to roll. They have one that can help them to run faster and one that can help them to re-roll their charge distances. But none of those are actually used in the hero phase. They are used when needed. The Inspiring Presence, for example, is used in the Battle Shock phase. This command ability right here, for example, Lord of the Host, you can use this command ability at the start of the Battle Shock phase. Now, if it is not specified, if the command ability written on the War Scroll card does not say when it is used, then the default is the hero phase. In the first edition of Age of Sigmar, all command abilities were activated in the hero phase. But now they are activated when they say they are activated, which is different for every single one. Some in the shooting phase, some in the movement phase, some in the combat phase. Doesn't matter, just follow the directions on that card. But the card will always specify. So you'll see this a lot in your shooting phase. It says right here. And it tells you exactly when each of these abilities will activate. So watch for anything that says in your hero phase, and you use it in the hero phase. One thing that we'll be going over in a future video is command points in relation to command abilities. In order to use a command ability, you need to spend a command point. You gain a new command point at the beginning of every one of your turns, and if you don't spend them, you get to keep them. So if you have your first turn and you don't use a command ability, then you'll have an extra command point in your next turn. This means that you could actually activate multiple command abilities at the same time. It's beyond the scope of what I want to talk about here, because I feel it's important for us to go over command abilities and command points in its own video and show you a battle report that really combines all of the nuances of what you can do with those. But it is important for you to understand that they exist. This is a relatively short video because that's really all there is to the hero phase. Casting spells can probably be the most complicated part of it, and a lot of times you might not even have wizards and not even need to use it. but when you do use it, you need to make sure you're doing it right. So of course, all these rules are available in the core rulebook if you want to go over them and address that. But we're also going to make sure that the battle report, which is included at the link in the description below, which is in the MiniWarGaming Vault, will include lots of spell casting and priests and all that, so you can see it in action. So make sure you go and watch that right now so you can cement the things that you have seen and that I have shown you right here in this video. So go ahead and watch that right now. If you're not a Vault member, you can click it, get a free 7-day trial to the MiniWarGaming Vault, instantly watch that battle report and the one from the core rules as well, so you can get a better grasp on the Age of Sigmar 2nd edition rules. And if you'd like to share this series with somebody else who's trying to learn, tell them to go to miniwargaming.com/how-to-play AOS, as in Age of Sigmar. And next week what we'll do is we'll talk about the movement phase so that you can see how everything shifts around, and we'll just keep going from there, teaching you all the basics of how to play Age of Sigmar 2nd edition. Happy wargaming.